What if your money rules were meant to change? Today you will learn how the rules you live by shape every choice about work, leisure, debt, and saving, and how a thoughtful rewrite can unlock calmer days. This topic is not about blame or perfection, it is about understanding how your mind negotiates money moments and how small rewrites can reduce regret and increase alignment with your values. By examining how people actually spend and save, you can design rules that fit real life, not idealized scenarios. Money rules are not laws carved in stone. They are mental models built from childhood messages, social norms, and personal stories about safety and success. When a rule feels absolute, it often blocks honest reflection. The goal here is to become curious about which rules still serve you and which rules create friction or shame. You deserve a framework that travels with your life, not one that collapses when plans shift or emotions surge. Consider the everyday moments where rules collide with reality. You might tell yourself you should never buy coffee, never eat out, or never borrow. Those rules can be extreme and brittle. They can also be useful guides when paired with context, flexibility, and a clear purpose. The idea is to separate the core intention, supporting financial well-being, from the rigid ritual that may no longer fit your life. In practice, rules are filters. They decide what you permit, what you pause, and what you automate. A rule can be a limit on impulse purchases or a commitment to automate savings. A rule can also be a reminder to check in with your values before a big decision. The most effective rules are simple enough to remember and flexible enough to adapt when goals change. Let's start with a simple analogy. Imagine your money rules as lights in a dashboard. Some lights indicate safety, some signal caution, and others glow when you push against your comfort zone. The goal is not to turn all lights off or on at once, but to tune them so you notice what matters in the moment. When you understand which lights to trust, you move through temptations with less wasted energy and more deliberate action. The cultural backdrop matters too. Our rules are influenced by narratives about success, happiness, and the virtue of thrift. Those narratives can push you toward binary thinking, do this or don't do that. In reality, financial life sits on a spectrum of choices, and most meaningful improvements come from small, repeated adjustments rather than grand overhauls. Two recurring themes emerge when people rethink rules. First, friction is the enemy of good decisions. If a rule makes it hard to act on a goal you care about, you are likely to abandon the rule at the worst moments. Second, consistency compounds. A rule that you apply reliably over many weeks tends to deliver more impact than a perfect plan that you abandon as soon as life gets busy. The practical approach is to translate big aims into tiny experiments. You test a different rule for a month, measure what changes, and keep the parts that help you stay aligned with your values. This experimental mindset reduces the fear of changing what doesn't work and builds confidence in your ability to steer your finances with intention. To begin, map your current rules and the emotions they trigger. Do you feel relief when you automate a monthly transfer? Do you feel guilt after a late-night online purchase? Label both the rule and the feeling. Naming the emotion reduces its power and helps you choose a better response next time. Next, identify the core values you want money to support. Some people value freedom, others value security, others value time with family or the ability to pursue passions. Your money rules should enable those values, not mask avoidance, risk, or avoidance of discomfort. With values in mind, you can craft a small set of flexible rules. Think in terms of limits, not absolutes. For example, rather than a blanket rule to never spend, you might adopt a rule that says you will spend a fixed amount on discretionary items each week after completing essential tasks and savings goals. This keeps space for enjoyment while preserving progress. A practical framework you can borrow is the three-bucket approach. The first bucket covers essentials like housing, food, and healthcare. The second bucket covers freedom to spend on small pleasures and experiences that nourish well-being, without derailing long-term plans. The third bucket targets growth, savings, investments, learning, and opportunities that expand future options. Treat these buckets as a living system that you adjust as life changes. Now let's walk through a concrete rewrite of a common rule. Suppose your current rule is never dine out because it's wasteful. That rule might save money, but it also erodes social life and joy when you rarely meet friends, or when you skip celebrations that matter. A more flexible rule could be, I allocate a modest weekly dining limit and prioritize experiences that support relationships or health goals. If a special occasion arises, I may adjust, but I reflect afterward to understand the impact on my overall plan. This reframing preserves value while reducing rigidity and social costs. The psychology behind this shift is straightforward. People are motivated by progress and by how well a choice aligns with who they want to become. A rule that feels coercive or guilt-inducing often backfires. A rule that feels humane and aligned with values tends to stick because it reduces cognitive dissonance and invites follow-through. Let's talk about small experiments you can run this month. Start with a rule check at the end of each week. Did I follow my rule, and what happened when I did or didn't? Keep a short note about how you felt during each decision. This creates a personal database of triggers and outcomes you can study later. Another experiment is to adjust your automatic transfers. If you currently save a fixed amount, try saving a percentage of income or a fixed target that grows with pay raises. You may discover that the percentage approach better accommodates changes in income and living costs, while still preserving discipline. When you test rules, you learn to tolerate a bit of uncertainty. You do not need perfect accuracy to improve outcomes. The value comes from the pattern of honest feedback and the willingness to adjust. In time, your rules become more precise because they are grounded in your lived experience. Here is a simple rule you can start with today. After every paycheck, I allocate a portion to essentials, a portion to savings, and a portion to a small discretionary fund. If you keep that distribution consistent for several weeks, you'll begin to see how money moves through your life rather than hovering as a vague concept. The next layer is to think about friction. Friction is anything that makes it harder to act on a positive decision. It could be a cluttered savings app, a confusing budget category, or a fear of future outcomes. Reducing friction is often more powerful than increasing motivation. If saving feels like a chore, you won't stick with it. If saving feels automatic, you will. To reduce friction, streamline your process. Use one simple budget or two clear buckets instead of a dozen tiny categories. Automate where possible, but set periodic check-ins to make sure your automatic systems still reflect your current goals. The goal is effortless consistency, not heroic weekly maintenance. A common pitfall is the all-or-nothing mindset. If you miss one rule for a week, you might abandon the entire plan. Instead, view slips as data, not failure. Ask what led to the slip, what emotion or situation triggered it, and how you can adjust. This gentle recalibration is the backbone of sustainable change. Let's move from theory to real-life application with a few concrete scenarios. Scenario 1, you want to buy a new hobby instrument in 6 months. Your rule could be to save a fixed monthly amount and to test whether the purchase would meaningfully enrich your life. If you lose interest, you reallocate the funds toward an alternative goal. Scenario 2, you have a recurring credit card balance that grows. Your rule might be to pay off the balance in full each month or to set up a micro-savings trigger that blocks further spending until debt is reduced. Each scenario uses the same principle: tie every decision to a value, a limit, and a time horizon. A powerful habit is to create a weekly money pause. Spend 10 to 15 minutes every week reviewing what happened in the prior 7 days, comparing outcomes to your rules, and noting any adjustments you want to try. A brief, predictable ritual creates clarity and reduces anxiety around money decisions. Over weeks, this pause becomes a supportive compass rather than a source of stress. Another helpful technique is to reframe savings as a gift you give your future self rather than a sacrifice you must endure. Picture your future self enjoying choices you would miss if you had spent today without thinking. This subtle shift can soften the sting of delaying gratification and reinforce your motivation to act now for long-term value. As you rewrite rules, you will discover that not every rule needs to apply to every moment. You can carry a core framework and adapt it to new contexts. For example, a high-earning month might invite a bolder savings target, while a lean month invites a lighter, more flexible approach. The adaptability preserves momentum without erasing your progress. In addition to mental reframing, remember the importance of social context. Share your rules with someone you trust and invite feedback. A supportive friend or partner can remind you of your values when the urge to deviate surfaces. Together, you can reinforce healthy norms while still honoring personal autonomy. Finally, celebrate small wins. Acknowledge the moments when you stick to a rule even when it was tempting to deviate. These micro-celebrations compound over time and reinforce the habit loop, helping you weather future pressures with greater resilience. The journey of rethinking money rules is ongoing. Your life changes, your goals shift, and your rules should shift with them. The aim is not perfection but a steady alignment between daily actions and long-term purpose. With curiosity, experimentation, and steady practice, you can design a financial approach that feels humane, doable, and effective. If you are listening for a takeaway, here it is: rules work best when they are clear, flexible, values-driven, and tested in real life. When you treat money rules as living tools rather than fixed decrees, you move through uncertainty with greater calm and greater consistency. Your path toward a better life with money is not a single revelation but a sequence of small, thoughtful rewrites that accumulate over time. This approach respects your brain's need for safety and your heart's need for meaning. It invites you to notice the stories you tell about money, question their usefulness, and replace them with practical actions that support your best self. In other words, rethink, test, adjust, and repeat. The result is a more intentional relationship with money and a life that better reflects what you value most.